can you chime in on this conversation? We
Oh,
know that you have a lifelong experience, and we want you to chime in on all of this and get the conversation moving, even beyond what it already is, because this is some serious stuff, and it's important that we learn about these things and we are being made aware that this happens to us.
well, I'm gonna start with Liz, if I can. Liz, what's important about your story is that the story is told, and the story is told from your point of view. What I'm doing with music in the Black church is in this effort to put together a hymn book of African American composers, is to tell the story from our point of view, which is very, very important. The professor from I teach a class at HCC in songwriting, and it's interesting that I'm at HCC teaching a songwriting class to people of all different ethnic backgrounds, of course, of which you know, and to watch them grad online classes, even with class being filled, and it's a 2 hour and 50-minute class. At the end of the class, no one wants to leave the line. They still want to get more information. Well, a part of the telling of the story is to tell it from one's own point of view. And even as we talk about our history has to be told from our point. And as I interact with the African American church and the Black church, you know, even with him singing the songs that we sing, they are wonderful texts. Have nothing against the texts themselves, but it's interesting that we would be validated, Vaughn, in an educational arena, institutions of higher education, as a quote educated musician once we learn music of non-African American background. I mean,
Right.
you're celebrated when you know the European cultures.
Absolutely.
So, you know, yeah, we learn spirituals and we learn music of our culture, but we're not validated. When I first
Right.
years ago, there was taboo to do gospel music within the walls of the school, but that music has always been an avenue to tell our story. And to the psychiatrist, I agree with you, man. Not until we get to the root of the matter. My grandmother would have sang a song with lyrics like, "I have a telephone in my bosom. I can call him and tell him what I want." The reason
Yeah.
we could sing that song, which we don't sing that anymore, but we really should, is because now we have all kind of other means of getting our stories told, speaking about the abuse, speaking about the injustices. When we walk into Wellens department store with my grandmother, an 18-year-old non-African American girl as a girl, and I began to speak out. My grandmother say, "No, I got this. You shut up." And to watch her shame this young girl with her wisdom and her age as an African American woman, highly respected in the community. But when she walked into this department store where she's spending her dollars, she's referred to as a girl. But she knew how to combat that. But then when she got to the church, she would say stuff like, "I have a telephone in my bosom." She knew she couldn't call EEO at the time, or she couldn't call the manager and report this girl, but she could tell this God of her salvation about it. And he always had ways and means of giving us the answers to our questions. So religion at that point in Christianity wasn't used as a weapon against us, but it was used as a tool of our escape, to soothe our souls, to calm our minds, which is absent today sometimes in the language of the music that we sing in the church. But I think it's important now for us to resurface some of the stuff. We did a presentation on a TBS station a few weeks ago, Vaughn Greta, and we traced music from 1916 to the present time. And to hear the music in that room of these singers came in unrehearsed, but all had lived long enough to know some stuff, starting with Dorsey and some of his themes and the text contextually, how these stories are embedded in these songs. If someone the history of a nation, just listen to the music that we were singing. So when we were singing Sign Me Up for the Christian Jubilee, write my name on the wall, and we're going back to Precious Lord, to some of the texts that we sang then that doesn't resound. As a matter of fact, I want to close this thought out. Greta and I was at a school, a public school, or a private school here in Houston, and Black History Month came up, and the kids, we were assigned to plan a Black History program that was WAR, W-A-R. Mm-hmm. So I chose a hymn and to teach the kids all 4 verses, the telling of the story again. And in a high school environment, 80% Mexicans, not even Mexican Americans, just Spanish-speaking people. Mm-hmm. Some didn't really speak English very well. So and one little boy said to me that, and to Miss Greta, he said he wouldn't be able to make rehearsal on that Wednesday because he had to go to court with his mother because they were deport her. So he came back to the class that Monday, and I asked, how did everything go? About 20 kids in the class, 24 kids in the class. He said, it went okay. We have to go back. They reset another date. I said, well, what about your father? He said, they're on the run. They're looking for him now. And so we got quiet in the class. I said, did you learn your verse? He said, yes. I said, well, sing it. And he sang, must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease, while others fought to win the prize and sail through bloody seas. The little African-American girl jumped up. She said, yes, I got it. Then we sing, sure I must fight if I would reign. Increase my courage, Lord. I'll bear the toil, endure the pain, supported by thy word. And then they all say, then we sing, when the battle is over, we shall wear a crown. Well, that was in an environment with about 20-some kids in a charter school. But when I was able to do that, but I had to leave the room by the time they began to sing because I was overwhelmed by what we call in church the power of the Holy Spirit. So I had to leave the room because I was about to, my behavior was about to. Well, the tragedy is when I get to not to sing those texts. Young people can't identify. Am I right? Cross the follower of the Lamb? Shall I fear to own his cause or blush to speak his name? Are there no foes for me to face? Must I not stem the flood? Is this vile world a friend to God, to grace to lead me on to God? Well, but then I get in this environment where these nuns, English-speaking students, high school students, they were able to connect their circumstances, their immediate circumstances, with the text of these tunes. Right. Church, I have to water that language. Surely don't teach our kids that. So there's something systemically wrong even in our environments. And you guys are right. Education starts, I think, at home. It's our responsibility as parents and co-parents to make sure that we expose our kids to the right language. Now, the language of that text I just quoted was not written by an African American. So it's really not just limited to, but it's how we educate, how we teach, how we expose. And we have a greater responsibility. I think it's ours to keep those things alive. Who would ever thought that I was around during the Mississippi when we left Southern University back and got on a bus to ride to Mississippi and to Alabama to Georgia when the riots were going on, and then here it is years later. I'm saying the same thing happened. But absolutely, we have to change our language. No, we threw away the baby with the bathwater. We should have kept the language going. Freedom. We shall overcome. I mean, there's something that we should have kept embedded in the language of the conversation that we were having. But moreover, you're right, we should tell it from our point of view. Now, the only way I believe we can get healed is not to go back to Africa, to our roots, we go back to Calvary. You know, as a Christian, that's what I believe. It's because I think Jesus still heals. It's good for healing of the nation. It's good for healing of everybody. And of course, teaching in a college university, in a college environment, I don't talk that way. but I think the power of the text that embedded, that the power that's embedded in the text when we began to expose composers and talk about this, but black and non-black, but especially our story and in our story.
And don't you think that, Uncle Mike, don't you think that history is told in the music and music then reflects history?
Sure. That's what I was saying earlier. Someone said, trace the history of a nation, just listen to what we were singing. Listen to music of the people. I mean, and it's why was Marvin Gaye singing these themes in the 60s? I mean, come on, that's crazy to me. The same things that are working now, he was doing. He was we right back to that. Well, we're not really back to it because we never left it. We were always masked, but for some reason we don't know how to hold on to our truths and how we will.
Better tell it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Uncle Mike. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my God. Now when I say we're getting a history lesson tonight, we're getting a history lesson tonight.
I hope it's good to y'all out there because it's getting good to us.